Alright, I'm back for the chapter 1044 reaction. Just kidding. By now you've probably already seen that chapter, now 1045 is out. So we're going to do this a little bit backwards. I'm going to run through chapter 1045, then I'll go back to 1044 and talk about things there with the context of 1045 in a video that should be up tomorrow. What I'm really excited for are the crazy connections that I had when reading 1044, and also I want to expand on some of the ones that I had from my live stream from last week, because some of the things I was saying makes even more sense now with 1045 out. But I'll be expanding on some of those points in separate videos, but let's get into it. If you're new to my channel, the way I view the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the Par vision. Okay, so with 1045, we got an image of the weekly Jump cover, and usually I don't look at this, but I don't know if you guys noticed this or if this is just a thing that's common, but you know how Oda said that towards the end of One Piece, he's gonna show us a guy with an eye patch because that's a real true pirate, and we still haven't gotten a single character to date with an eye patch despite this being a show about pirates. Well, look at this cover really closely. It looks pretty standard. But look right above Luffy, right on top of the straw hat, we see a pirate with an eye patch. This gives me anxiety and excitement, like, is One Piece ending? Are we gonna see the eye patch pirate soon? I'm hoping we have a little bit more time with One Piece. So anyways, we get into the chapter itself. 1045 is currently titled Next Level, and that is an accurate title because this chapter was definitely another level, definitely the next level. So truthfully, 1045 doesn't have a lot of things to talk about. Like, it does, but it's like this chapter is more like, all right, the entire community kind of just has to jaw drop, digest what is happening here. So let me get through some of the highlights. Of course, with what we saw in chapter 1044, Luffy is able to make his surroundings rubbery, like an awakened paramecia. But Kaido noted that it was odd, because he, and as we the readers know, Luffy's fruit is actually a Zoan fruit. And later on in the chapter, we find out that Luffy's form is pure white according to Kaido and Yamato. That is a really big detail for me, and I'll try to get to it in this video, but it'll probably be in the next video. So the rest of this chapter is really a display of what Luffy's new powers are capable of, and there seems to be a lot more at play than just Luffy tunes like people are saying. So Kaido eats Luffy, and I don't know if you guys remember last time this happened, I said I was expecting Luffy to go nuts inside Kaido, and Oda recreated that entire scenario and did exactly what I imagined in that video and wanted to see. Sometimes it really does feel like me and Oda think a lot alike. So then we get to an interesting instance. Luffy uses Gomu Gomu Balloon and inflates himself inside Kaido, and somehow Kaido also stretches to match Luffy, and everyone is confused, and Kaido says your body is meant to be rubbery, not mine. So this point is really interesting, and it comes back up towards the end of the chapter, and that's when I want to talk about it. So then we go to the next panel, and I'm gonna be honest with you all, I was a little upset seeing this. Luffy sees Kaido's eyes from within Kaido and sticks his hand through his eyeballs, and it's done in a way that kind of seems world-breaking. Like, this definitely breaks the logic that we've come to know and love about One Piece. And I'm not saying I hate it, but I very much would understand if people were lost by this. Luffy doesn't seem to blind Kaido. It's like his hands phase through Kaido. It's kind of like Law's crewman in a sense. It's really interesting. But then it gets crazier because Luffy goes giant form. And this is something people have theorized and wanted for a long time. And honestly, Oda made that filler with the girl that can turn into a giant, and she went inside Luffy and stretched him to be a giant. Like I always say, Oda always puts foreshadow in quote, filler content. I love that strategy because it makes all the other content so exciting to watch because you're looking out for these details and looking for the connections like how I always am. But anyways, what does Luffy do in this form? He jumps rope. He uses Kaido as a jump rope. Kaido in retaliation burns Luffy, but Luffy does something crazy. He starts running in air without any other gears besides gear 5th, and he makes a flame road essentially. That's another interesting display of power. That'll be interesting to dissect later on. We'll talk about that in another video. But backing up real quick, this is a really great display of Luffy's ringed eyes, which if you guys haven't seen yet, my Mihawk video from months ago gives a solid explanation for this. Also, when BDA asked for predictions for 1044, I said Luffy would have ringed eyes. You know, the typical Par vision, just predicting stuff. You know, that's who I am. My theory is that if that's the way it goes, Luffy will have a double layered eye, like Hakuba when Hakuba takes over Cavendish, or like me, like Eam. We don't know where those eyes are, but I have a theory that that relates to like some kind of possession thing. So, if that is the case, then Luffy will have double layered eyes, in my opinion. I'm just throwing that out there. So the goofiness continues with this chapter though. There's a lot of cartoony things, and Kaido even says it's like something out of a picture book. So then we get to a very interesting display. Luffy's gear 5th essentially droops away, and Luffy goes from "I'm far from done" to "I'm beat." Now what's really interesting here is that Kaido seems to be affected by Luffy's tiredness. Look, Kaido looks fine here, but right after Luffy is fatigued, Kaido also gets down on his knees and starts panting. Their banter continues, but in this scene, it's like Kaido is affected by Luffy's emotions, which is crazy because this feels like emotional hockey, which I talk about in my Sanji series, and I'm going to expand on that in my Conqueror's Hockey video also. But going back to the chapter, this is where the concept of death is brought up first in the chapter. Kaido says if Luffy dies, they'll tell tales about him. And Luffy ironically says, nah, when you die, just your bones stick around. Which kind of like refers to Brook, I think, right? Like that's kind of what that means, I feel like. But then Luffy's drums, it seems to be confirmed that the drums are from Luffy. They seem to ramp Luffy back up, and he says a really powerful line. After all of this, do you really think something like death can scare me? And Luffy's full white form comes back. I just want to point out a weird string of names. Luffy randomly says Momo, Tama, Kinemon, and Pedro. Not that Pedro shouldn't be respected, but I honestly couldn't think of why Luffy said these names together, because Pedro is dead, but the other three aren't. And I feel like usually in a situation like this, Luffy thinking about the dead, wouldn't it usually be Ace that he would be thinking about? But yeah, then we get more goofy displays of Luffy's power. Luffy gets smashed by the Kanabo, and usually in the past we'd see that Luffy would bounce off of it or get hit by it or something, but here he completely absorbs the hit by molding his face to it. Then Luffy gets whack-a-mole by a Conqueror's hit, and it doesn't look like it damages Luffy at all. He just conforms to it and then springs back. What's really interesting is that it really is what the Gorosei said last chapter, where Luffy's rubber properties are giving him so much freedom in the fight. And this is when we get a little reflection from Kaido. He says 3 major things of note. He highlights that Luffy is pure white. He also says that Luffy is coding armament and conquers, and he is influencing his surroundings. And he's fighting Kaido with such versatility and freedom that it's surprising even Kaido, and he's supposed to be the strongest person in the world, so he's taken aback by this. Then we end this chapter with this punch. Luffy punches Kaido, and again it's this really weird interaction where his hand goes through Kaido's head. What in the world is that? So like in the eyeball situation, Luffy's hand went through Kaido's eyeballs without damaging him. That could be what is happening here, but it could also be that Luffy punched Kaido, and because of a specific ability, he forced Kaido to stretch to match Luffy again, like he did with the balloon move. I personally think that Kaido's body stretched here to match Luffy. When we see Kaido's face after the punch, it's very clearly not pierced, and it's not like he phased through Kaido, otherwise the momentum of the hit wouldn't make sense. So it feels like Luffy stretched Kaido's face here, which is a step above the normal awakening from before. This honestly plays into so many of my hockey theories, where I think in my elemental hockey video, I said that there might be awakenings that convert people into specific energies. But so yeah, it seems like there's 2 instances now where Luffy is making Kaido's body act like rubber, and the question there is how? Is there something in One Piece that makes that make sense? Is Luffy just turning Kaido into rubber? That also wouldn't make sense necessarily, because that'd low-key be like buffing Kaido. When you think of it, both of these attacks, if Kaido didn't stretch, then Luffy's attack would be devastating. It's really interesting to think about because this display of power confirms something I wrote for my 1044 video, and I talked about it lightly in the live stream, but then in this chapter we got the confirmation that Luffy was pure white, which supports what I was saying, and it makes so much sense. So basically, to hint at it, this panel where Luffy punches Kaido and his hand goes through his face, and this panel with the Grim Reaper had me make a crazy connection. I think it might have a crazy potential for what this Grim Reaper is. I'm going to need to save that for another video though. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to post another video that covers my perspective of 1044, but it will include the information that we now know from 1045. I know I've been AWOL for a while. Thank you all for supporting me so much. I have so many videos backlogged and about 3 more for just 1044. So if you like my content and want to help me get the videos out, please consider supporting me and subscribing and becoming a visionary on Twitch, YouTube, and Patreon. Or just share my videos whenever they're relevant to you. And so, like always, thank you for connecting with me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all on the next part vision.